A very warm welcome to this lecture. I'm going to talk about intellectual property rights on the course code BBA009. And in today's session, we are going to discuss on properties and intellectual property rights. I'm Dr. Ramji Kalidas, Associate Professor from the Department of Biomedical Engineering, School of Bioengineering, Bharat Institute of Science and Technology, Bharat Institute of Higher Education and Research. Before entering into the session, I will like to share one scenario, a scenario at the Indian Patent Office. Do you know how many patents are filed at the Indian Patent Office every year? Yes, almost 45,000 patents, out of which how many are filed by Indian nationals? Any guess? Only 13,000. Then what about the remaining patent applications? These are all filed by other foreign nationals. So out of 45,000, 13,000 are filed by Indian nationals. Just for a simple comparison, let us see the scenario in some other countries. Okay, we'll take USA. So how many patents are filed in USA? Any guess? This 5 lakh patents per year. Okay. It is interesting to note that in India, although which is very rich in intellectual capital with a population of 1.3 billion, only 13,000 patents are filed each year. This figure is despite the facts that we observe. Okay. So what are all the facts that we observe? What causes this lesser number of patents with a huge intellectual capital and a huge population? Okay. What we observe and what is the reason behind this less number of patents? So we observe that many R&D organizations and academic institutes in the country are engaged in research work, right? Then why there is no substantial patent filing? The second fact that we observe is some or the other day on the news channel, we see a news about a small kid or a college going student or a farmer from the very corner of the country. Okay, they may not be having a formal education, but comes up with a very interesting product or a solution to some problem. Am I right? Both these scenarios we have observed. Now, yes, the third scenario I would like to put forward is about these students and teachers in the universities and college develop something new and are struggling to understand the patent filing procedures. Okay. The last scenario I wish to share is of MSMEs. Here, what happens generally, the founder is working on a particular project for years together. Hence, his or her knowledge about the particular process is sharpened. Eventually, when they explore new ideas, definitely they create something which is patentable, but they are not able to identify whether that particular technology or process has the potential of filing a patent. So what is the solution here? Here we will try to examine all the scenarios which we were talking about. So extensive to combine all four, it is extensive researching in a few organizations and institutes, no formal education but created a formal products, students and teachers struggling to understand the patent filing procedures, and MSME unable to identify whether a particular technology is capable of potential patent. Okay, so these are the causes of less number of patents. Okay, now we will see on in the first case, if academic and research institutes are of national level, okay, well settled IPR cells, there is a established process IP management that are streamlined to assist researchers in patent filing, and hence top list of patent filing names, the National Institute of Importance and all the national laboratories, all these have a dedicated IPR cells. Okay. In the second, third and fourth case, there is no such facility available, right? However, one thing is common in all the above mentioned scenario, IP awareness is a major issue throughout. Okay, so this awareness, it should reach all the common people. So what is IPR and what it fetches and all those things. So there is a substantial research going on in all the four scenarios which we are talking about. So now I am trying to put forward another scenario which that comes under Indian philosophy. So knowledge is for sharing. Okay, in such case, the critical decision making by the researcher is required. We should respect our culture, but we should appreciate that we are in a knowledge economy where knowledge is power. Globalization has played a very important role. We are now competing with the world. So intellectual property system is designed in such a way where intellectual efforts of a person are recognized and appreciated with keeping balance of social welfare. Okay. Intellectual property is an instrument which helps people to protect their knowledge and create wealth, as well as they can donate their IP or social welfare. All these scenarios has specially uh, motivated for the institute to design such a course. So this course is an attempt to create awareness about the patent and what are its misconceptions, why the number of patent filing is very lesser, and what research and development mostly focuses on, and what schools, colleges, and research institute, academic institutes of national importance all need a clear guideline in patent filing. So what is the drawback here? What is that thing that IPR can yield for an individual or for an organization? It can yield wealth, where you can donate an IPR. And meanwhile, being a knowledge-driven economy, okay, this can avoid infringement. A special case which I would discuss about is Samsung infringing Apple's IPR during 2016 and 17. For this, Samsung has paid a huge, was liable to pay a huge cost for Apple to infringe their patent. So, what are its general misconceptions? Okay, patent is a time-consuming process. This is a general misconception, but it is not a time-consuming process. And the cost of filing is very less based on what are the conditions we expect to file a patent or IPR. So the third misconception is patent is confined only to R&D. No, it is not confined only to R&D. And the last misconception is there is no IP experts. That is a misconception, but there are a number of IP experts in and around our country to help us, to direct us, to focus us on how to convert our product or convert our idea to a patent. That is to safeguard our intellectual property. That is the creation of mind. So now we'll see what a property is, and then we'll see what is the similarity of property and intellectual property. We'll see the similarity and differences as well. Okay. So what is a property? Property is those real or intellectual goods, okay, that are commonly recognized as being the rightful possession of a person or a group. So anything which belongs to someone individually or collective property. Okay. So two words, real or intellectual. Okay. So real is a property, intellectual goods, that is also a property. Then rightful possession. Okay. This is very important. Real or intellectual and rightful possession. Probably you have heard of cases as same flat is registered on many names, and then the issue starts as who is the real owner. Okay. Have you heard of such things? Here also, with respect to intellectual property, right, ownership is very important. Hence, rightful possession is an important part when you deal with a property. And how you will find out rightful possession? Is there any way? There are. We'll see in upcoming examples, okay, about these examples. Now, what is the understanding is the basic trait of a property is the rightful possession, the ownership, and exclusive rights. Property is recognized as a legal right of an individual. Legal right over property gives its owner exclusive rights, which allows him to exclude others from using it. Exclusive rights allows a owner to exclude others from using it, and he has all the rights to sell, license, use, etc. So we'll see examples of some property. What are the examples of property? Land, gold, cars. All these are the example of properties. Now going further, do you know if there is any other classification of property? Generally, the property is divided into two types, tangible property and intangible property. Okay. So tangible properties are those properties certain and defined physical form. Such properties can be perceived by sense, for instance, those which can be touched. For example, a pen has a physical form, right? And can be touched, and it belongs to someone. Therefore, it is a property. And if you want to use pen of someone else, you seek a permission, right? Why? Because the owner of the pen should allow you to use his or her property. A pen, right? You can relate this example of a pen with car or flat or any other property. Without permission, you are not allowed to use a property owned by other. Now we'll see intangible properties. So intangible properties are those which lack physical existence and cannot be perceived by senses. For instance, ability to write a novel book has a tangible form. The book is tangible, but the content, it is the intellectual capital, the creation of the author, creation of mind from the author. So book has a physical existence. So you perceive it by touch, you see it by your eyes, right? But the content does not have any physical presence, and you cannot perceive it by any of your senses like touch, smell, taste, etc. You cannot. Similarly, a movie CD, or if a movie is stored on a pen drive, then you can see, you can touch the CD, you can touch the pen drive, but you cannot touch the content of the movie. So it is intangible. Similarly, so that is the reason why before screening a movie, there will be a copyright form. That is the certificate that will be displayed before screening the movie. So the content, content of the movie is intangible. You cannot touch or you cannot perceive by any senses. Similarly, one more example of intangible property is a machine. You can touch the machine as such, but the thought process went behind building or creating this machine cannot be touched or observed, right? So intangible is which cannot be perceived by senses. So now you can understand what is tangible and what is intangible. Right? So intellectual property is a type of intangible property and is defined as a creation of human intellect. So intellectual property is a result of effort of intellect of humans. IP properties are the creation of mind. So what are the creation of minds? Such as inventions, literary, artistic works, say symbols, names, images, logo of a company, designs used in commerce, books, movies, etc. So when we say invention, just mention above, it is a patent, a type of intellectual property. When we say literary and artistic works, it is a copyright, right? So patent is for technological advancements or a technological process. Okay. For symbols, names, images, it is industrial design. Okay. And so each and everything has different terms to associate it with. Okay. So now we'll see what are the similarities and what are the differences and what are the rights of ownership of the the property and the intellectual property. Okay. So an intangible property can be further divided into movable and immovable properties. So for example, movable property will be car, jeweler or bicycle, etc. Right? And immovable property will be house or bungalow or college or building or any bridges, etc. Intellectual property is a type of intangible property. So as per another classification basis, we can classify intangible assets into intellectual property and intellectual capital. Okay, intellectual capital. We will discuss about the slides in detail. Now, as of the intangible property is further classified into intellectual property and intellectual capital. Okay, so we are constantly saying that in India is very rich in intellectual capital. So what do you mean by this intellectual capital? So this is further subdivided into 6 types. The first one is human capital, relational capital, structural capital, cognitive capital, conative capital, and affective capital. So totally intellectual capital is divided into 6 types. Okay. So now these 6 forms of intellectual capital together make up the innovation capital of an organization. Innovation capital in the sense, so these 6 intellectual capital is directly related to how intellect is the organization. Okay. We'll see that one by one. Innovation capital is responsible for creation creation includes innovation and inventions, right? So intellectual capital is human, relational, and structural capital, cognitive, and affective capital. They form the innovation capital. So the next question is, what is human capital? What is relational capital? Okay. So we'll take an example of an organization, say a college or school in which you are learning, or a college or organization in which you are working. So what is human capital of your college or school? Okay, all students, teachers, non-teaching staff, etc. They form the human capital, right? Human strength, human capital. So next, what is relational capital? So relational capital of your college or school will include the vendors, the suppliers, any collaboration with other organizations, okay, memorandum of understanding. So all this, the relation, how the particular organization maintains with all these vendors, suppliers, collaborations, okay, all this is relational capital. So you can add it to the list. Now next is structural capital. This includes the infrastructure of your college or school. So these are the three major types of intellectual capital. Now the next important is cognitive capital. Okay, so forget about the terminologies. We'll just try to understand what is cognitive capital. It is the mental action or process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thought, experience, and the senses. Okay, I repeat. So basically, it is how fast a human capital, that is any staff or a student or a non-teaching staff, is how fast they are able to acquire the knowledge that is happening within the institution. On what basis? Through thought, experience, and senses. This is cognitive capital. Okay, the next one is cognitive capital. So it is any natural tendency, impulse, striving, or directed effort. Okay, so meaning that it is the capability of a human capital. It is a natural tendency, okay, towards the creation of intellectual capital for the organization. The last one is affective capital. It is related to your moods, your feelings, and attitudes. To understand these last three capitals, okay, that is cognitive, and affective. We'll take an example. Okay, we'll take an advertisement of Volkswagen. So a commercial of Volkswagen. In this, you might have seen a scientist feeling nostalgic when the car moves out from the factory. So this is affective capital. So this is a feeling for the creation. This feeling, it is affective capital. So these are the 6 different types of intellectual capital, okay, that will generate wealth. So this is intellectual capital, which creates intellectual property. Okay, so these all 6 are the intellectual capital of an organization. That capital will create intellectual property. Okay. So we are using words patents, copyrights, industrial design. All other terms we are using, are these same or are these different? Just definitely different. Okay, so we'll try to understand what are the difference. Okay, so as I told you, for any technological product or technological process, the intellectual property will be protected by filing a patent. For any artistic, literature, and linguistic work, for the cinema we talked about, it is a copyright. So there are these minute differences that we are particularly interested on. Okay. So the first broader classification of intellectual property is industrial property and copyrights and related rights. Okay. Industrial property, under industrial property, that includes patents, trademarks, industrial designs, and geographical indication. Copyrights covers literary works such as novels, poems, plays, film, music, any artistic work, drawing, paintings, photograph, sculptures, and architectural design. So all this comes under copyrights. Rights related to copyright include those of performing artists, that is broadcast in radio, television programs. So copyright and related rights are performers' rights, the broadcasting rights. Okay. So this is very important in film industry, the publishing industry. So as of now, we have to understand that industrial property, copyrights and related rights all are for some specific reason. Okay. So this industrial property is divided into patent, industrial design, trademark and geographical indication. This is further subdivided into as such. Now we'll see for patent, we know patent is further divided into product patent and process patent. So we don't have utility patent in India. However, there is a utility patent in other countries. We have only two patents. The first one is product and the second one is process patent. Product patent in the sense you are protecting your idea on the development of product. Process patent means the product is already same. You are coming up with the product that is already existing, but the process is not similar. It is somewhat easy to the existing process of creating that product. So hence we have only two patents. One is product patent and the second one is process patent. Okay, we will see this. Okay, we'll discuss about this on the forthcoming sessions. Now, next we'll go on to trademark. Okay, so you have heard brand names, say Tata, Reliance, Bombay Dyeing, Patanjali. So with the single word, you can appreciate certain things, right? Tata, when we say Tata, immediately we remember some unique qualities. Reliance, immediately some framework comes into our mind. Bombay Dyeing, immediately quality bedsheets, you will remember, right? Patanjali, you will remember Patanjali toothpaste. So only one word, immediately you think of something else, right? So this is trademark. A single logo, name, sign, symbol. So this represents a business. There are various types of trademark, and again, it is a very vast subject. We are particularly focused on what a patent is. So these are all the classifications of intellectual property. To create an intellectual property, we need an intellectual capital. So we are aware of what a tangible property is and what an intangible property is. Intellectual property is a type of intangible property. It is the creation of mind, intangible property. Okay, it cannot be touched or perceived. It doesn't have any physical form. Okay, now next we'll move on to industrial design, right? Industrial design. So what is an industrial design? Can you see the car design? Generally any car design. Okay, if I say Mercedes-Benz, a special design, right? If I say Bisley bottle, again a special design. A Dove shampoo bottle, a specific design. Thus, with these names, some design comes in front of our eyes. This is what industrial design is. Okay, so this is again another type of what to say, intellectual property. So the next one is geographical indications. So geographical indications, suppose if I say Tirupati Laddu, Darjeeling tea, Kolhapur Chapel. Okay, what happened? A particular region that comes into our mind immediately, right? The unique qualities due to geographical location. Geographical indication of goods is another type of intellectual property. India is rich in geographical indication, which can leverage for wealth creation. So patent, trademark, industrial design, geographical indication are major industrial properties. Then there is semiconductor layout of design, another type of intellectual property. Then trade secret, a very important aspect of business. We are considering it under intellectual property. Here, although there is no any dedicated act for the protection, as it is a secret, a trade secret. So you know how many times in small business also the owner keeps something related to business very secret. Only he or a few members know that particular thing, especially in family business. This something which is kept secret to run the business in unique way is trade secret. So in this classification, we are considering patent, trademark, industrial design, geographical indication, semiconductor layout design, and trade secret under the industrial property. Okay. The next type of industrial property is related to plants and farmers' right. A separate act is enacted to protect this. So this is another type of intellectual property. Just for the sake of knowledge, we'll discuss that protect plant varieties and farmers, right? So next is traditional knowledge. It is again very important. We are rich in traditional knowledge, the knowledge which is transferred from one generation to another. Again, a vast subject. So these are the various type of IPs. So there are 8 types of IPs with reference to traditional knowledge. Some research scholars consider it separate domain. Some consider it an IP. So we'll follow a classification as shared here as an intellectual property. Classified into 2. The first one is industrial property and the second one is copyrights and related rights. So industrial property include patent, trademark, industrial design, geographical indication, semiconductor layout design and trade secrets. So totally 6 types. Then we have protection of plant varieties and farmer varieties. Thus totally 8 types. And then a traditional knowledge. So there are various acts for this: Patent Act 1970, Trademark Act 1999, Design Act 2000. So there are various acts here. Okay. So there are different scenarios where this act, that as I told you, a real-time example of Samsung and Apple having a dispute between infringement of intellectual properties. So all this, only if we file, we'll get this. Only if we file a patent, we protect our creation. Only then we'll get to understand this. Okay. So with this, we'll quickly run up with today's session of introduction to a property. Okay. So what is the scenario? Only 45,000 patents is filed in Indian Patent Office compared to 5 lakh per year in US Patent Office. However, our population is big and we are just filing only 45,000 patents, out of which only 30% is by Indians and the remaining are by others. And the second one, out of 5 lakhs, 50% by Americans. So this is a huge difference that we need to realize. So what are the causes? By trying to identify what are the causes, no specially dedicated cell at academic and research institute, and the IP filing process is ignored by MSMEs as they are not aware of whether this particular product or process is capable of a potential patent. So what if we file an intellectual property? We can generate wealth or we can donate an IPR, and some other individual or an organization can be prevented from infringing our intellectual property, our creation of art. And what are its misconceptions and why people don't go for patent filing? The first misconception is it is time consuming. The cost of filing is high. Patent confined is only to R&D and not for others. And there are no IP experts. So these are the 4 misconceptions. And these are also the reasons why the number of patents filed in India is less. So only if you understand property, we'll know what an intellectual property is. It is a real property in general is a real or intellectual goods. So real is a property, intellectual goods is an intellectual property. So what happens? What are the basic traits? Rightful possession, ownership, and exclusive rights. And this property is classified into 2 types. The first one is tangible and the second one is intangible. So tangible means it has a definite physical form and can be perceived by senses. Okay. Again, it comes under movable and immovable properties, but we are interested on intangible properties. It lacks physical existence and cannot be perceived by any senses. So this intangible property is classified into intellectual capital and intellectual property. So what is an intellectual capital? So only with the strength of an intellectual capital, an intellectual property can be generated. If the strength of the intellectual capital is high, the strength of intellectual property, that is the creation of intellectual property, will be high. So the similarities between the property and intellectual property is you identify the existing ownership, you go to a government office to register and make it your own, and you have all the rights similar to what the tangible property has. So now we'll see the classifications of intellectual capital. This is 6 types: human capital, relational capital, structural capital, cognitive capital, conative capital, and affective capital. So human capital is the manpower of the organization. That is, if you take school or college, the teaching, non-teaching staff, students are all the human capital. The relational capital is the maintenance of relationship with the vendors, the collaborators, etc. The structural capital is how better is the infrastructure of an organization. Cognitive capital is the ability of human capital to learn the process of organization with thought, experience, and learning. Conative capital is It can be basically sensed as a decision making based on the intuition of human capital, and affective capital is the mood of the manpower, as we have seen example of the Volkswagen commercial. And this is the classifications of intellectual capital. Now we'll move on to classification of intellectual property. So it is basically classified into 4 types: industrial property, copyrights and related rights, protection of plant varieties, and traditional knowledge. Traditional knowledge is what has been passed from so many generations on, and we are rich here in India. We are rich in traditional knowledge. Protection of plant varieties. So here we can see an example of Lay's Chips filing a lawsuit against the Indian farmers for a specific variety of potato. Okay, they have protected that variety of potatoes. Okay, in this act, protection of plant varieties. And the copyrights and related rights comes under artistic and literary works, architectural designs, films, musics, drawings, arts, paintings, and all those things will be protected by copyrights and related rights. Next, industrial property. It is classified into 6 types. The first one is patent. Patent is further subclassified into product patent and process patent. We have discussed what a product and process patent is. We'll see further details in the forthcoming sessions. And the next one is trademarks. Trademarks is about the brand, logo, name, sign that gives an immediate thought if we see that brand. So that are all is protected by trademarks. One cannot infringe the same logo or same brand or something like that. And industrial design, the shape of the Dove shampoo bottle, the shape of Bisley, the design of a car. So same car, different manufacturers, immediately the picture of that comes into our mind. So that is industrial design. And geographical indication, Tirupati Laddu, Kolhapur Chappal, all these examples we have seen. Trade secret is a secret only that particular individual will know about that particular business. So with this, we'll finish this session. As of now, you understand what a property is. So what is intellectual property and what is the existing property? Okay, what are their similarities and what are their differences? And what is the owner's rights? Okay, so you try to understand all this. This is further subclassified into intellectual capital and intellectual property. So intellectual capital again 6 types, intellectual property 8 types. So with this, we'll finish this session and we'll discuss further on what are the conditions in which a patent can be filed and all those things in the forthcoming lecture. Thank you.